So way back when I was, 14, 15 years old, and I was really starting to make some progress on the guitar and put some stuff together, I learned about these things called the modes. And I think that modes are one of the most misunderstood things that intermediate level guitar players kind of have to dive into. And I used to have these big dreams that once I figured out the modes, I would understand everything perfectly and everything I played would be magical. And unfortunately, like with most things in music, we figure if we practice a lot, we study theory, everything's just going to make sense and we'll love everything that we play, and unfortunately that never seems to pan out. But today I wanted to talk about how I actually use the modes and how you can go about learning them, because I'm going to have a series of videos on each mode of the major scale here coming up. So, what is a mode? A mode is basically inversions of a scale that give us slightly different kind of notes. So if I went for, say, my G major scale or G Ionian scale, I would get this kind of sound. And then if I played the same notes but I started from the second degree, A, and I played all the way up to A, now I have a kind of minor scale, and then the same thing with the third degree, and so on and so forth. So that's where the modes come from, and today I want to show how you can go about learning these and using these. So the way that I like to think about modes is kind of like they're sonic spices, in that if you're cooking, adding, garlic or adding ginger, all of these different things. The different ways of coloring the flavor palette, just like we'll be coloring the sonic palette here. But to give you an example of what I mean, I'm going to play a G, and I'll sustain it. So there's my G pedal there. And now I'll play a little bit of G Ionian, so just G major over this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play G Lydian, which was another major mode. And the difference between Ionian and Lydian is this note. In Lydian, the fourth becomes sharp. So this is an option to play over a G major chord. And if you add in that sharp 4, it gives everything a little bit of a lift. So just to get you back into it, I'll play a G. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start an Ionian. Now I'll switch to Lydian. And so what this does is, to my ear, it gives the major tonality a little bit of a lift to it. And so that's the thing that's beautiful about the Lydian mode, is you get this little extra pull, particularly to that fifth scale degree. So there's the difference kind of between major and Ionian. And the great thing about this is you can flip between the two, you can borrow little bits of it where you want. But let's look at some more examples. So the second mode of the major scale would be Dorian. And that's a kind of minor sound. But the thing that makes it unique, just like what makes Lydian unique, is it's a major scale with that sharp 4. In Dorian, we get a minor scale, but we get it with a natural 6th. So if I was going to play G Dorian, I would have G, A, B flat, C, D, and then E natural, that natural 6. And so this kind of sound is really, really wonderful as well. And it's kind of like, I like to think of it as a happy minor. So here I'll play a simple G minor chord. Sustain it. And now here I'm going to play a little bit of just G natural minor. Now I'm going to play a little bit of G Dorian, and you'll notice there's a little bit of a lift to it. Minor. Here's Dorian. So it's a slightly different shade of that kind of minor. Now, alternately, because Dorian is often referred to as the happy major, because we get that major sixth interval. If we wanted to take the minor scale and say make it a little bit darker, we could end up with Phrygian. So Phrygian would be the third mode of the major scale. And what makes Phrygian interesting is it's a minor scale. So 1, 2, 3, flat 3, sorry, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. And we add in a flat second. So this kind of, to my ear, darkens the minor sound a little bit. So we would get this kind of sound. If I play my G minor triad again, here's natural minor over this. Now here's what Phrygian might sound like. That to me has a little bit more darker and more minor-y of a sound. That's really beautiful. Now, if I were to go into the other two modes, there would be Mixolydian and Locrian. So Mixolydian happens on the 5th scale degree, and that is a major mode. Really, it's a dominant mode because it's a major scale with a flat 7. So you get this kind of sound. This is kind of where some really hokey bass lines come from, is that Mixolydian mode. So it's really commonly used over dominant chords. You wouldn't really play it over a major chord unless it's kind of, functioning as a dominant chord. Like, for example, a song in the key of C. If it goes to a G chord and then goes to C, it's pretty safe to guess that you have this Mixolydian mode. And the thing that Mixolydian does great is it adds a little bit more tension. So if I were playing over a G chord going to a C chord, maybe if I played major, it would sound kind of funny because it would be kind of like this. That change to the C is a little bit interesting because if I play G major, I'm likely going to end up at some point playing a major 7, and G major 7 to C major 7 works, but if I flatten that 7th, there's a lot more pull to it. So if I did the same thing, that change makes a lot more sense. So Mixolydian is commonly used over dominant chords because it's got that flat 7. And then the 7th mode would be Locrian. And Locrian is a half diminished scale. Well, I guess it's a diminished scale. It's got the 1, the flat 3, and the flat 5. So the Locrian scale is like it's like a Phrygian scale with an added flat 5th. So you get 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. And this chord is really only, or this mode, sorry, is really only commonly used over minor 7, flat 5 chords. So if I play a minor 7, flat 5 chord, this is the only mode of the major scale that will really fit and have that root, flat 3rd, flat 5th, and flat 7th. You could also use it over just a diminished triad, for example. So actually, let's try that. So if I go, we get that dark kind of evil sound. So this is probably the least used mode. If you were looking for ones to start with, I would say probably go Dorian, Lydian, and Mixolydian, which will be the 3 first videos I put on this subject. But this is how I go about using the modes and a really good way to practice them. So I'm using the polysustain effect on my HX Stomp here to get that sustain sound, but you can also do this with a drone, or you can set up like some kind of loop in Logic that just play, or Logic or whatever DAW you use. And it's really, really wonderful to just get a chord happening and then explore what you can do with that mode. And you'll start noticing, that was a little bit hot. There we go. You'll start noticing where things want to pull, like maybe the Lydian mode notice that that sharp 4 really likes to go to the 5. And using these, I really like the cooking analogy because it is somewhat similar to cooking in that you learn how to balance different flavors. And really over any minor chord or minor 7 chord, you could play notes of Dorian, notes of Aeolian, or notes of Phrygian. Over any major chord, you could play notes of Ionian, you could play notes of Lydian. And learning to kind of balance and play with these sounds and these textures is really the best kind of way to go about the modes, because it's not this magical fix-all strategy, but it does give you access to sounds, and it gives you this kind of way of practicing. It gives you a way to practice utilizing and extracting those sounds. So, hope this video was somewhat useful to you. If you liked it, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Stay tuned because there's going to be more videos about the modes coming out very shortly. If you'd like to take a guitar lesson with me, I have a link to that down in the description there. I'd love to work with you on whatever it is that's troubling you on the guitar. I do everything from metal to jazz, so I'd really love to work with you. And other than that, I'll just wish you guys a great day. I've got new videos coming out at least every Monday and every Thursday. Right now I'm trying to push out a little bit more content, so whenever I see you next, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until I do, take care and have some fun playing the guitar.